friends, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video, and I wanted to discuss the dynamic in the empath-narcissist relationship and why this is such a pervasive problem for a certain personality type or people that have certain alignments in their chart. So empaths are people that feel the feelings of others. They have a very porous emotional self and are very attuned to their environment and pick up the vibrations and the feelings and the knowledge in the environment around them. And they very much identify with other people's feelings and difficulties, and they are known as the helpers and the healers and tend to be very Neptunian, very Piscean, and have a lot of 12th house energy going on in their charts. And narcissists are people that have a very deep childhood wound that really disallows them to love themselves in any meaningful or real way. So a lot of times you'll see a lot of first house or 10th house, easy Saturn aspects to the Sun and Mars, difficult aspects from Moon to Pluto and Mars, an exalted Sun, etc. Alignments that will point to a very healthy or overblown sense of self or of their own point of view. Because the chart, the natal chart, is very much a picture of our outlook on life. That's about it. There's no mystery to it. It is a map of our self-imposed limitations that we established at an early age as a result of our environment and what we were picking up and what we were being steeped in and what we, there's a certain amount of cell memory that comes into this because genetics do play a certain part in things. But because any mother that's had a child will tell you that when that child comes out, they are what they are. So it's very much, the chicken or the egg, and nobody can tell you what. And if any astrologer tries to tell you what, find somebody else because they are way above their pay grade. You aren't supposed to know everything. That's just the way it is. You aren't supposed to know everything. So that question of, is the birth chart a stamp of us before or after? Time is a circle. It's a circle. And from our point of view, it's the straight line, and we want to fit this cosmic reality into our very limited perception, and it's ridiculous. So the birth chart is very much a map of our early environment, and based on who we were around and what was going on, what we soaked up, a lot of our fears and our limitations and the things that come easy to us and that we do well, and it's that's what we were stamped with. And so there's very much this, I want to say, this ability to be whatever you want and to have all the characteristics, because we are not our birth chart. We are our true soul that, travels from dimension to dimension and is not this, one identity. And so the birth chart is very much that. It's our identity. It is what we decided we're going to be. And so when we have a lot of first house energy going on, as opposed to a lot of 12th house energy going on in two people, we get into this dynamic where one is a taker and one is a giver. And so people that are empathic, that have a lot of Neptune going on, especially to their inner planets, they are very much looking to establish an identity, to establish an orientation in the world through healing or helping or showing compassion. So there is an identity issue at the core of both these people's problems, why they hook into each other. So the empath is somebody that's, looking to help or heal outside of themselves. The narcissist is very self-oriented. And so I have to tell you that I see a lot of Pisces descendants in my practice. They make up at least 20% of the people that I see. It's a very, very pervasive issue to get into relationships that they deserve better. And people also with Neptune coming into the 7th house make a big part of this dynamic that I see very, very commonly in my practice. Because I'm a relationship and intimacy astrologer, I see a lot of couples, I see a lot of people with relationship or compatibility issues or questions. So this is a common dynamic that I see, not every day, but pretty close. So when we have Neptune ruling or in the 7th or in strong aspect to the 7th house ruler, sometimes it'll be Neptune coming into the 1st and having some stuff going on. It can also be Jupiter ruling the 7th and Jupiter being in the 7th house itself. With just Neptune, we'll get to Jupiter in a second, why that's an issue. With just Neptune, we're looking to bring our sympathy. Whatever planets are in the 7th, we bring those to other people. We don't really act those out, we give those away. And we're looking for those in others. We're looking to have that reciprocated. Because those are the things we think that we're missing. And the other person is that match, that one that completes us. When you can only complete yourself, you can only complete yourself. I'm going to embroider that on a pillow. In fact, I'm going to embroider that on a bunch of pillows and put that on my website. You can all order it. It'd be like the best thing that I could ever do for people in the world that have too much compassion. So when Neptune is in strong aspect to the 7th house ruler, ruling the 7th house or in the 7th house, they're too long-suffering. They're too forgiving. They fall in love with people that have problems. They fall in love with alcoholics. They fall in love with abusers. They fall in love with people that have some kind of mutation or something, because in their eyes, that's really sexy. So they have these sick people, invalids, people that have something that need to be saved or something that need to be healed, or that are seen as, the Quasimodo of society, and the person that's filled with Neptune is going to swoop in and make them feel accepted and loved and beautiful because they know that that's what's truly going on. So it's an outlook that they have going on, and it's something that a lot of people who have this, especially women, grow out of. Because a lot of Neptune problems are solved by having life beat the crap out of you to some degree. Because, we go from being the princess to being the realist. And wanting to build castles in the air to, settling for a pretty cute cottage that's paid off and has a nice flower garden, So Jupiter, when Jupiter's ruling or in the 7th house, Jupiter is our ideas. It's our big ideas. It's our beliefs and our philosophies. Mercury is our intake of information, our assimilation of information, our style of communication. It's like our outward communication. Jupiter is more our inward communication. It's what we do with the information that comes from Mercury, what it distills into, the opinions that it becomes, the beliefs that it becomes. Mercury is changeable. Jupiter is more fixed when it comes to what he thinks. So when we have Jupiter in the 7th, now keep in mind, what we have in the 7th we're giving away. We're looking for in others. We're looking to pin those planets on other people. Jupiter's our beliefs and our philosophies. Oftentimes, very oftentimes, when people have Jupiter in or ruling the 7th, especially women, not so much for men, this particular alignment, because Jupiter rules husbands and the men that we settle with permanently. Mars is boyfriends and idiots. So when we have Jupiter in the 7th, the female's opinions and philosophies often become the husband's. They are in a lot of danger of being brainwashed to some degree, or allowing themselves to have that going on, especially if Jupiter is in a hard aspect to Mercury or Neptune, or there's this kind of T-square alignment going on, we have certain houses involved. It can be a real problem. Because we pin our opinions or ideas on the partner. So both of these positions, or not a both, there's like 4 different ones, Neptune or Jupiter in the 7th, or those planets ruling the 7th. And then you have to have a lot of times some other things going on too. But it puts somebody at risk for not accepting their own power or their own ideas and being too forgiving. Jupiter also represents our forgiveness factor as well. Neptune too, in a different way. So it's really common for me to see people that have, particularly women, that have these particular alignments going on. And they are in the same position, or a very similar position, where they're either in love with somebody that they can't have and still attached in an unhappy long-term relationship, or they are available but emotionally unavailable, and that's why they've attached to somebody who's not returning their affections. So, it can show up in myriad ways, but the narcissist-empath relationship is really common also to see going on here, especially in the context of a longer-term relationship. It's also common for people to contact me in the early stages when things are starting to go south. So when we have this kind of dynamic going on, the relationship starts out as very, very intense. This particular dynamic tends to move fast. Somebody that has a lot of narcissistic traits wants to lock things down very quickly and make things, wants to get you into a position where you are theirs or committed, or there's some kind of obligation very quickly. Sex tends to happen very fast. There's a lot of attraction. There's a lot of physical attraction typically when we have this going on, because there's going to be a lot of Pluto when we have this kind of dynamic going on. And if you haven't watched my Plutonic relationship videos, you are going to want to switch over and watch those next if you don't know much about what I'm talking about, because that will fill you in on other aspects of what Plutonic relationships are and how they happen. This one is more specific to just pointing out the more stages and giving you some more information about kind of the background of what causes this kind of relationship. So it's really common for women and for men who are in these early stages of the relationship to confuse the intensity that they're feeling and the quickness that the rapport happens and that the feelings happen, because there's a lot of sharing really early on, and so there's this emotional bond that really comes on early into the relationship, and a sexual bond as well, that the empathic person, as time goes on, they really mistake that for love. And Pluto does that in Plutonic relationships. It gives these two people idea that the intensity and the love, that's the same thing. And that and people that have a lot of Pluto aspects in their own natal chart have an outlook on life, the intensity and a lot of times difficulty or struggle or things like that, that is love. So they are more prone to getting into these these type of relationship dynamics as well. So things start out really great. It's really intense. You're spending a lot of time together. He's demanding all of your attention. He's giving you all of his attention. He's buying you things. You have never felt this high before. And then things change. Now, when that change happens can be different. It can be very early on in the dating phase when he just goes quiet or you don't hear from him for a while. or his behavior changes, and it's now, he's not honoring your wishes. You're the one who's honoring all of his wishes because you want him to be nice again. So the empath starts changing their behavior and honoring the wishes of the narcissistic person over their own. So ultimately, the empathic person is looking to return to fantasy land and is trying to bring that back because they're thinking that if they can just please the other partner, then they will start returning to that place because they know that that's possible. They were just there. So sometimes things can change after marriage, and it's the kind of the bait and switch here. So it's different, slightly for different couples, but the story is always going to be generally the same. It's really common for clients to contact me. Also, in the stage where things are still really great. It's when the hairs start going up on the back of their neck. It's going to be different for different people. And the love bombing phase, which is the initial phase, is the one that the empath is thinking they're going to be able to remain in if they can just get the other partner to that place where they're happy with them again. So it turns into this real psychological manipulation that is always going to be about a lack of respect, ultimately. Platonic relationships are extremely disrespectful relationships at their heart. And the respect and the boundaries will be off from the very beginning when you're in one of these relationships. Unfortunately, because of the addictive nature of Pluto, a lot of people will continue in the relationship because it really hooks into their issues. And Pluto rules addictions. And so does Neptune. Yeah. I like to equate Pluto in the 8th house to a crack house. And the style of what that kind of drug is. It's a stimulant. And it's one that, causes a lot of adrenaline and a lot of paranoia and fear a lot of times. And then you have Neptune, which is very much related to, the 12th house. And I like to call that one the opium den. And this is where we choose to sleep through the addiction, and it's a downer, and it's a depressant, and it's one where it enables our fantasy mind in such a way that we build on the beautiful things of fantasy rather than the paranoia, dark things of fantasy, like the 8th house. So they both describe addiction in slightly different ways, depending on what the substance is. The substance of Pluto is intensity. The substance of Neptune is escapism. And so they're both actually, trying to escape, but in slightly different ways. One's through blame. But the Neptunian type of blame is different. It's actually more difficult to see through because of the nature of Neptune. Pluto actually does want to get to the root of things. It wants to get honest. Neptune really never wants to do that. So these issues are, they offer tremendous growth, these types of relationships, but it comes at a very high price. And it really comes down to how much life do you have and how much do you want to spend it in difficulty, because you do have a choice. You do have a choice whether to remain in these relationships because there is a payoff, even though it's difficult. There's something that's hooking into you that allows you to, almost all the time it's about a lack of responsibility. Basically, both parties they don't want to be responsible for their feelings or for their decisions. And it's when we choose to grow up or we choose to deal with our individual natal charts and deal with our problems, that we can really come to a place where we're not in danger of attracting these types of relationships anymore. So I hope this was helpful, and if you enjoyed it, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. Yes, I do private consultation. You can find me on the internet at Truth in Aspect Astrology, and on Facebook at Truth in Aspect Astrology, where you should be following me, because I do the daily astrology, weather forecasting, birthday descriptions, articles. I also specialize in asteroids and planetoids, so you can find my writings over there, and on my website, which is still working on that. So wondering what's going on in your relationship, or in a relationship where things don't smell right, or maybe it's a long-term relationship where you're needing to understand the underlying dynamics, I'm the one to call. Thanks for watching. I'll be back super soon with more super cool videos. Bye-bye.